Thank you all so much for having me as your guest. I'm really, really delighted to be here, and I learned so much from your talk just now and all of the different ways that our worlds intersect, and so I'm really, really grateful to be here. Again, I'm Susie Q. Smith, and I have written a poem for you all today that is something I wrote specifically for you. It's available, I believe, in the app if you'd like to see the text later, and I think it's going to be on the screen as well, so for those of you who would like to follow along visually, we can do that too. But I thought I'd give a quick background. So this poem was constructed through a lot of conversations with Charmaine Jackson about what this conference is, who would be here, and the things that you'd be talking about. And I thought about some of the things that have impacted my life and all the different ways that I sort of come to this. So I haven't written any code outside of MySpace HTML, do we remember? No? And yet I have been deeply impacted, right, by a lot of this work, right? When we think about the marginalized identities, right, being impacted by AI particularly, and by different technologies. Like I remember in 2011 was the first time that I got the hair frisk at TSA. Any others? A few of us, maybe? Right? And it's not because the TSA agents were specifically racist, right? It was because the technology hadn't been designed to see through our dense hair, right? Because there was no one who looked like me in the room building that technology. And there was no one in the room being studied with that technology. And so I got subjected to a hair frisk every time I flew for several years until the ACLU finally sued them, and then it became illegal to continue doing that. So I don't get hair frisks anymore, usually. But my hair was setting off the machine, so it looked like I was traveling with daggers. In my hair, which I was tempted to try sometimes, like just start hiding random, things in there so they could find little gifts, little candies, and so, make it fun. But also a couple of years ago, I received an email from a teacher in Texas, a high school teacher, and she reached out. She found my website and she said, "Hey, so I'm looking for the rest of this poem. I only have an excerpt, but I want to know which one of your books it's in." And I looked at the excerpt, and the poem was called "On Being Mixed," and I went, "Oh, that's not even really language I use typically when I'm defining my own racial identity. I usually say black or biracial black, so that was really interesting. I was like, maybe I wrote this on MySpace back in the day." I was like looking for this poem. It doesn't really sound like me, but enough that it could have been, a young me. And I'm looking, can't find this poem anywhere. I know it's not in any of my books. I respond like, "I can't find it. Can you tell me how this poem came to you?" She said, "Well, I asked ChatGPT for a poem on interracial identity, and it said, well, here is this poem by Susie Q. Smith." She didn't ask for me by name, which was all of my friends who have helped develop LLMs and all the writing friends that I know, they were like, "Oh, it's not supposed to do that." And I went, "Yeah." So here we are. But not only did it, so someone has told the robots that I'm biracial, so they know that part, and they were like, "And you know what, she also writes poems. Here's one that sounds like her." And that was something that, and it's come a long way. I'm sure that now the poem would be even a stronger sell, and I might even be confused and go like, "Did I write this? This is kind of fire." Like, it's getting better all the time. But I think about these things often, right? And I'm deeply impacted, as are we all. So without further ado, I'll share this poem with you. Just one more funny little anecdote, because this is also a common thing. But just the other day, I decided to change my Facebook photo, and it offered me some selections that they thought might be a good fit, and it chose a photo of a dear friend of mine who also is biracial black, and said, "Would you like this to be?" I said, "Oh, even the robots can't tell us apart. That's a good time." So these accidental racisms that happen in technology. Though, to be fair, many people confuse us in person as well, even though we look nothing alike. So it's not just the bots. All that being said, I think about the future frequently. So I'm going to begin with this poem that I've titled, "The Future Is." I thought about an ellipses there, but I think it's implied. Author Toni Cade Bambara said, "The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible." And of course, I have read about revolution and the Tea Party and the American Civil War and all the ways we have learned to spill and split, and yet As a lifelong writer, imaginer, artist, and dreamer, I wonder if revolution is also combing our fingers through the soil and planting springing seeds in its belly, trusting the sun and the water to help life burst forward. Or maybe revolution is a song we sing together on the bridge of late summer when the sun is hot and we all got beads of sweat rolling down our faces, enough to shine on our foreheads, to look like whole other moon, but we won't stop us from dancing, and we work in rhythm. Hear how we keep this thing humming. You know, blades swung high, then low, then high, then low, and we all know not to get in the way of anybody's harvest. And maybe revolution is loving each other's stories enough to hold them tenderly and give them a place to live and be shared in abundance. And maybe it is a love for the land and the water and the air and the children, yes, especially the children. Maybe it is us speaking our truths and listening to each other as if we are also precious, also sacred. I come from a long line of mighty women, women who remember, women who tell, women who put their hands in the mud, divining truth and sweeping shadows. I come from people with hard hands and soft hearts. I come from women with scrubbed hands who always try to do the right thing. We all come from something bigger, some root that reminds us we were alive before our memory began to frame the story. Author John Edgar Wideman said, "Do not fall asleep in your enemy's dream." And I wonder, whose dream is this we are living inside of now? Whose dream decided the shape of power and all it exacts? Who imagined this room, the chair you are sitting in, the walls and their color, the clothes we chose to show up in, our hands and what we decide to do with them? I read poems at a prison not so long ago and noticed it had been built before Colorado was even a state, meaning someone arrived for their first time at the great red canyons and open plains and the skies that take your breath away, where I might imagine wildflowers blooming in spring or a herd of bison working their way through the grass, and they instead imagined barbed wire. Double barbed wire, working its way over the tops of stone walls and overlooking from the top of the plateau a tower with an armed guard. I'm saying, imagination is everything. Everything began with a thought, including you, yes, you, and your lovely way of noticing. And if thought is creative, then we here are creators. The first storytellers were women, scratching out dreams on stones. We know how to make things. Look at our hands and how quickly they can build a callus. Look what we can build when we are bold enough to dive our hands into the earth. Look what we can make of mud and wood and stone, what we make when we come together. If imagination is a handful of seeds, imagine what we will build when we accept what we can grow. In the future, maybe we are avatars. Maybe we are post-reality, cooling in the confines of worlds constructed for us, forgetting to find the answers to questions we haven't considered asking, forgetting to wonder how our imaginations have been narrowed. How will we know whose instruments we have become? I imagine what we can make possible together when we are intentional, especially when we are the ones who build the road. The life we can open is juicy as ever, where everyone is loved and cared for, and all have enough to eat, beautiful and safe shelter, clean air and water. In the future I imagine we share generously, knowing there is always more than enough for everyone. We are kind and creative. We live in harmony with each other and our environment. We are healthy, well-educated, and joyful, and we live in peace. The road to the future is not always clear. I'm a poet and have, since I was a young teen, told people this is who I would be when I grew up. And yes, sometimes those people even laughed in my face when they spat words like impossible at me, vowing that their pitiful dream for my life was inevitable. And yes, I forgive them the fragility of their hope. But I know the author Mariame Kaba says, hope is a discipline. And so we keep going. After all, what else is there to do? What other way but onward?